everyone. Welcome back to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audio Visual Services, and we have been busy little bees the last few weeks, but we didn't want to miss another week. We want to continue to add value to all of our clients, so we have a few quick tips today to help out. But before the tips, I'd first like to bring back a very special co-host, Alexa Frost. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my first time with my new name.
Oh, why? What happened?
I did just recently get married.
Oh, look at that. Look at this lovely picture of Mr. and Mrs. Frost. Well, it's a pleasure to have you back here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
On the show. This is quite an honor. You know, I got to tell you, already this seems a little more organized and a little more fluid than when Ryan's here. That's all I'm going to say.
I would have to agree.
I mean, we even have some cool upbeat music.
He's going to be very jealous of the music for sure.
He's very hot on the music. Yes, there's no question. But of course, Ryan is working with a corporate client of ours down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida right now. Hopefully he gets to ride the water taxi. That's all I can say. But listen, we're going to get started. This is going to be a quick show today. Alexa, why don't you remind people how they can find us and where they can tune in?
So every Wednesday, or almost every Wednesday, we'll be here at 1 p.m. You can subscribe to us, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We'd love to see you there. And make sure you drop us a comment. We'd love for you to be a part of the show and add some value to what we're saying here.
That is all good stuff. Excellent, excellent, excellent job as always, Ms. Frost.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we've gotten a lot of questions in the last couple of weeks as people are starting to plan ahead for their spring events. And so we thought we could probably identify a couple of things. People are asking about trends. They're asking about suggestions. What are the things that we're seeing? So we thought we'd cover a couple of quick things that could help people in their planning. Alexa, I think that you are the right person to get us off and running. So why don't we get started? Why don't you tell us a little bit about tip number one?
All right. So tip number one is plan ahead and book your suppliers now. So we really want to make sure we're planning and getting that in now. Even when it's the end of fall, let's get right into it for the spring.
Well, I think that's a pretty good tip. That is a pretty good tip. And I'm going to tell you a couple of thoughts of why. Because I know that our nonprofit friends will certainly like this, but so will our corporate association and all of our healthcare clients. But part of the reason to plan ahead and to book suppliers now is because, number one, you usually get your best pricing 6 months out. Because the suppliers can control their costs better. And there's still a lot of supply and demand issues. They've been ongoing through 2022, and they're still continuing. For us, we see a lot of it on the equipment and the staffing side. But I know all of our catering friends and hospitality friends are certainly seeing it on the staffing side as well. And so this is a great way for people to save a little money and to have a better experience by planning ahead. So it's a great tip, Alexa. How about, do we have another one? I mean, are we this good that we have more than one tip?
We do. We have more than one. So tip number two is going to be determine your audience, whether it's going to be in person, if it's going to be virtual, or maybe it's going to be a mixture of both. So it's super important to decide that now.
I think that speaks to a lot of what we're seeing right now, because we're seeing kind of different scenarios in each one of our core markets. So if I was to look at our corporate clients, then I would say that they're almost always a hybrid meeting, and that's just going to be the story. There's just too many people that are working part-time in the office. It helps reduce the travel costs. I think that one is kind of like a no-brainer for them, because there's too many people in different places. So they have to always have a hybrid as kind of like their standard. The funny thing is they also have determined that a lot of particular meetings are going to stay virtual. So the everyday types of meetings, we're trying to generate ideas. We need to communicate on a very specific topic, or things that are very content heavy, which might be used for training, or maybe that people can go back to and watch later. Think of maybe like a video you might like, and you just don't have time to watch it right now. It's going to take 45 minutes, but you want to watch it. Well, you're going to plan for that.
Right.
And that's the way corporate's also doing a lot of things. So almost all of their meetings are kind of still on that side. On the in-person side, we are seeing all of our corporate clients now back in the office finally. And now they're coming in full throttle. Like we're above and beyond whatever we were doing in 2019. And we expect that is going to continue through spring of 2023. If I look at our nonprofits, that's a slightly different market for us. So, what we're seeing is that a lot of the nonprofits, for them, in person just works a lot better for fundraising. Everyone is just kind of in tune to it. They're geared towards it. The networking side of the event, the experience, entertainment. Right now, we're seeing full capacities. Everyone is heading out in droves to be there. Now, there, of course, is a particular segment of the market that is not there. But many of our clients who had these events planned as a hybrid have just very recently been kind of squashing the hybrid part of it. Because remember, it is more complicated, and it's one more thing to think about. And if you're not thinking about a different experience for your online audience, and you haven't changed your program, it's not significantly shorter that you'd have in person, it's not really great for them. So our audience numbers have been very low, because I don't think many of our people have been putting a lot of effort or focus into the online, because they know their dollars are coming from the in-person. Now, there have been specific scenarios, a key donor or even an honoree that couldn't make it for last minute for some reason. So that's a little different scenario, because that stream then is for a very particular audience, and they've kind of already donated their money, right? So that you're not depending on them for that last minute that night. Right. But the last, I guess, section for us that we see all the time is the healthcare groups. And that can be hospitals, that can be pharma. But in many ways, they're very similar to our corporate clients, and hybrid is kind of the path that they've been taking. They certainly have educational things that they're doing with people on, that is just virtual. But when it comes to board meetings, or it comes to educational training, those have been hybrid all the way, because they just have certain people that can't make it. And, whether it's time or whether it's the location and travel, whatever it is, they've been hybrid almost all the time. So I think it's really an interesting thing, but I think determining who your audience is and where they're going to be and how to reach them, I think if you do that now, your life will be better 6 months from now.
That is true.
Excellent. Well, do we have a third tip? I mean, could we even have that many?
Tip number 3 coming at you.
Wow.
So tip number 3 is don't forget about the logistics. So they need to be budgeted and planned for. It's super important to remember this. Setting up electricity, internet, all of the above. We have to think about these things as we think about what the show consists of.
Alexa, that's a great point, because these are things that sometimes get forgotten of. So setup times. I know we have a lot of new people and new roles in many of the clients that we're working with. There's just been so much change over the last 2.5 years that I think it's a good thing to come back to and just reiterate and remind people. Setups depend on what you're doing, and so the time involved depends on what you're doing. If it's a major association and we have 5,000 people in a room, all right, that's going to take days. Okay. If it's a one-day meeting or a one-night meeting, then there are certain things that take more time than others. If we're hanging things in the air, that takes a lot more time. But if we're not, if everything is on the ground and it seems like it's fairly straightforward, I think the easiest thing is to figure on trying to get the space the day ahead. And if you can't get it the day ahead, then, make sure you budget at least 5 hours. Honestly, almost everything takes 5 hours at this point. And a lot of the hotels and meeting spaces, remember, they're trying to book as many people as possible, into their spaces, especially last minute. So if you plan these things ahead and you can book these things and lock them in, you're guaranteed to have a better experience. Okay. And just think of that time being 5 hours before you want to do rehearsal, because at that point, everything has to be ready and we have to be all fired up to go. Alexa, you mentioned electricity.
Electricity.
Which is a great point. With electricity, I know even just recently we've seen some different things in different places. Many of the spaces, they might not have enough electrical power in the particular space you're looking to hold your event. It always depends on what is going on and what we're doing, but additional power may actually have to be brought in. So I think you have to consider that. Many tents do not have enough power. Sometimes in hotels, it has to be distributed differently. So if you have a trade show and everyone requires electricity at their table or their booth, that has to all be planned out ahead of time. And big entertainment acts also require a lot more power. Just as an example, we're at a space today and electricity is additional. Okay, that electric bill is about $2,500, and there is nothing really extravagant, but it's just one of those things that you have to consider. And we were at 2 different hotels last week, and each one of them is fairly straightforward. And these were suburban properties as opposed to New York City, and they were still $500 plus a day for electricity, and that's per room. So that's why you have to kind of think of these things ahead of time. Just make sure you factor it in, talk to your production partner about it, okay? And they can usually help guide you on this, especially to try to help you determine what amount of electricity you may need. And then the third thing, I guess, that Alexa had mentioned was the internet. At this point, every event requires some form of internet, right? Certainly corporate meetings. Look, we know that we're streaming something, whether it's going online, it's going to Zoom, it's going to Teams. We know that there's a hard line required for that internet because we need it to be the most reliable. But then everyone else in the room also needs Wi-Fi to check their phones and check their email and check this and that. And when you're doing these hybrid meetings, those need to be separate. Okay, that's also an important thing. Now that alone can cost $3,000, can cost $2,000. It's not free. I'm just going to tell you now, that is not free. So you have to factor that in. If you're a nonprofit and you're holding a fundraising event, what are your guests going to be doing? Well, a lot of them are texting to donate. I mean, we have our own text to donate platform. We have our own fundraising meter that we've shown you on this program many times. So almost all of our nonprofits are utilizing Wi-Fi to provide to some of their guests for text to donate. So that's really important. You don't want to lose out on money. So now this is a revenue, required tool for you. And then the hospitals and healthcare, same boat. It just depends on which meeting they're doing. If it's fundraising, then, they need it for that. If it was their board meetings, well, there's a Zoom involved, or there's a Teams or a WebEx involved. So every single one of these meetings or events requires some form of internet. So you need to inquire about that ahead. And, many of the trade associations, they're really good at this. They negotiate that in advance. So when you're talking to your space, this is one of those things that you may want to use as a negotiation tool. But just, you can't forget about it, because if you come to the end, you could have a $10,000 bill that you weren't expecting. And I don't think anybody wants that. So it's great that you brought up these points, Alexa. I mean, I think they're really critical.
Well, hopefully these were helpful for everyone today. Just in a quick review, tip number 1, we're going to plan ahead. Tip number 2, determine your audience. And tip number 3, do not forget about your logistics. And for any additional questions, or if you want to run this by us, you can always contact us. We're happy to help you kind of plan out for the future. And we look forward to seeing everyone and talking about your spring events in the coming months here.
You know, Alexa, that was just so much smoother than my usual host. I mean, I don't know what to do. Plus, I get distracted. I saw a comment that we can't really put on screen right now. But, you know, not all of our comments are safe for our audiences.
Of course.
I think we have a great way to close out, you know, other than the obvious, you know, that you always really do with we're on at Wednesdays, and, you know, people can hit the like and subscribe. We know all about those. Let's not forget, though, about
the short clips. Yeah.
Right.
We always have the short clips to kind of break it up. If you can't sit and watch the whole thing, don't worry. We got your short attention span. We got the 30-second clips.
Listen,
click on that.
Today they can, because you know who is not blah, blah, blah.
That is true. That is true.
So this is a much shorter episode.
Yeah.
But just so everyone knows, Alexa actually does all the editing on the short clips. So, you know, tune in, check it out, leave her a comment, because she's done a great job on them. Now we have one more short clip that I think we're going to show people, so that we can just remind them what kind of week it was here and what kind of environment we have. So I think we're probably going to take off after this. So we're going to show you the short clip, and then we'll check everybody out next week. Alexa, I'm just going to say my goodbyes now. You feel free to take the floor, you know?
No, yeah, that's all we got. That's all, folks.
Okay, everyone. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao. Here we go.